What if the dead could be used as weapons in a war? Sounds chilling, doesn't it? As bone-chilling as it sounds, it's a concept that isn't far from the truth, a concept known as psychological warfare. The essence of psychological warfare is to manipulate an adversary's mind, to instill fear, demoralize, and disrupt their decision-making process. A strategy not reliant on the force of arms, but rather the power of suggestion, the exploitation of fears, and the manipulation of beliefs. During the Vietnam War, the United States saw an opportunity to weaponize these elements in an attempt to weaken their enemy, the Viet Cong. They crafted a strategy so eerie, so haunting, that it blurred the lines between the world of the living and the world of the dead. One such chilling example is the Operation Wandering Soul. The Operation Wandering Soul was as eerie as it sounds. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. sought innovative ways to weaken the Viet Cong forces. Among these, psychological warfare held a key place. The U.S. military strategists, driven by a desire to exploit the deeply ingrained cultural beliefs of the Vietnamese, conceived an idea that was as ingenious as it was unsettling. They turned their attention to the Vietnamese belief system around the wandering souls of the dead. According to this belief, souls of the deceased who don't receive a proper burial are destined to wander aimlessly in a state of perpetual restlessness. The U.S., in a bold move, decided to use this belief as a tool to shake the morale of their adversaries. They created audio recordings of eerie sounds and altered voices, simulating the presence of these wandering souls, the restless spirits of fallen Viet Cong soldiers. The intention was clear: to instill fear, to cause confusion, to encourage desertions and defections. Thus began an operation that was as psychological as it was oral. Imagine being in a dense jungle and suddenly the eerie sounds of the dead fill the air. The heart of Operation Wandering Soul lay in the exploitation of a deeply rooted cultural belief. The U.S. forces, armed with an arsenal of uncanny audio recordings, set out to disturb the peace of the Viet Cong forces. The recordings, a spectral mix of eerie sounds and altered voices, were designed to mimic the wandering souls of deceased soldiers, a concept deeply woven into the Vietnamese spiritual fabric. These chilling voices were not confined to the earthly realm. Instead, they took flight, played from hovering helicopters, echoing through the dense foliage, and they sailed across the water, resonating from patrol boats near Viet Cong positions. The jungle nights were thus filled with an unseen spectral army, a haunting symphony of the lost, aimed at weakening the resolve of the living soldiers. The operation was as much about psychological warfare as it was about military strategy. But as the spectral voices echoed through the jungle, one question remained. The haunting sounds filled the night, but did they achieve their purpose? The success or failure of an operation can often be a matter of perspective. This statement rings particularly true when we consider the aftermath of Operation Wandering Soul. The initiative, as audacious as it was, had a mixed bag of results. On one hand, it was successful in unsettling the Viet Cong forces, exploiting their deep-rooted cultural beliefs to sow seeds of fear and doubt. But on the other hand, not all soldiers were fooled by the eerie sounds emanating from the dark. Some recognized these ghostly wails for what they were, a psychological warfare tactic. These enlightened soldiers turned the tables on their unseen enemy, firing upon the source of the sounds. Instead of being the hunters, the American forces became the hunted, their positions revealed. This led to a reevaluation of the operation's effectiveness, and so the psychological warfare campaign that sought to manipulate the fears of its targets using the voices of their supposed departed comrades eventually came to a close. The Operation Wandering Soul, a chilling chapter in the annals of psychological warfare, ended in the early 1970s.